Hello, I'm Phillip Wylie. Thanks for everyone for attending my talk, The Way of the Adversary, Threat Actor Philosophies and Mindsets. I appreciate this opportunity to get to present here this year. A little bit about myself. My name is Phillip Wylie. I have my CISSP, OSCP, and SANS GWAPT certifications. Most proud of those is the OSCP. That was a tough process to study for and get certified. The exam was pretty tough, but I learned a lot. When I was getting started as a penetration tester, I'd moved over from application security, got laid off from my job, and went to work as a consultant doing pen testing. I'd run vulnerability scanners and worked in AppSec for several years and security and worked as a sysadmin, but I needed to learn how to hack. So I went through the OSCP. So was a really great experience. So I'm very proud to get that. It wasn't easy for me. I had to learn how to hack, and that was a really good one for me to learn how to hack. I'm also in my career wise, I'm an offensive cybersecurity professional instructor. I have been in offensive security for a little over 9 years of my 23 plus years of IT and cybersecurity. Have a little over 17 years of dedicated cybersecurity experience. I'm an adjunct professor at Dallas College. I teach ethical hacking and web app pen testing. I'm also the Pwn School Project founder. The Pwn School Project was created to give my students a way to further their education. Students down towards the end of the very first semester I taught were asking me, where do I go next? Where do I go to learn more about this subject? The college didn't offer any more than just the ethical hacking class at the time. So I decided to found the Pwn School Project. It started out mainly being topics on offensive security, but with our Denton meetings, Denton, Texas didn't have a security community there. So those meetings tend to be more than just offensive security. We spread into other areas because the goal is to help people get started in security or people in security to advance their careers. So I'm also the concept creator and co-author of the Pentester Blueprint, Starting a Career as an Ethical Hacker. This talk came out of a lecture that I used to give my class at the beginning of each semester. Some of the other professors at the college asked me to give the talk to their students. And, first time I gave this presentation was in January 2018 when I was starting out teaching at Dallas College. So from January to November of that same year of 2018, it became a conference talk. And I gave the talk at several conferences. I was featured in the Tribe of Hackers Red Team book, and the publisher, Wylie Publishing, asked me if I'd be interested in writing a book myself. And I thought for a while that the Pentester Blueprint would be a good book to write about. A lot of other resources teach you how to be a pen tester, teach you pen testing, but no one was really telling you this is what you need to learn before you start. These are some good learning resources to learn pen testing. I'm also the host of the Hacker Factory podcast, and in the spirit of a lot of things I do, it's to help people get started as pen testers. So I have different guests on each episode telling about how they got started in cybersecurity and pen testing and their tips on how to get started. So this is in the spirit of the other things I do is try to help people and help people get started. And I'm also Innocent Lies Foundation ambassador. The Innocent Lies Foundation helps unmask anonymous child predators. So they work with volunteers that do OSINT, that try to collect this information that they turn over to law enforcement to hopefully apprehend these people that are harassing children online, these predators. I'm also a hacking is not a crime advocate. And this we're trying to take back what the true meaning of hacker, because the media has portrayed it as we're all cyber criminals. And so the goal of that is to help the name of the hacker. When hacking started out, it was more about people that were actually coding, building things. Some of this came out of the MIT Railroad Club, where people were there working with different technologies and stuff. And that, in general, hackers have really been more of makers and people that were able to enhance, capabilities of different products and softwares, different technology, and that's kind of where the hacking term came about. They were able to hack it or make it do things it wasn't supposed to do, and enhance the capabilities. And then, over the years, we got to learn the term. It came to be more about hacking into something, be able to bypass security controls or something like that, finding bugs in systems. But the original term was uh, based on you know development, because you look at the hackathons. Hackathons are programming competitions, so these aren't really anything about computer hacking. So hacking's not a crime. We're just trying to bring awareness to the media and the public, because as an ethical hacker or a penetration tester, offensive security professional, over the years, people ask me, what do you do for a living? And it's easier to say ethical hacker than penetration tester, because people don't understand that term, and it takes a little more explanation. When you say ethical hacker, the intent is to make it easier for them to understand. But I've had several people ask me, is there such a thing as an ethical hacker? So, you know, there's a lot of work that we need to do to help bring awareness to that and make up for what the media has done. So the way of the adversary, threat actor, philosophies, and mindsets. Most of your talks and most of your trainings and stuff that you go through in cybersecurity, especially offensive security, so many times we focus on the victims, the targets, the people we're testing. You're focusing on the psychology of those specific targets, and sometimes overlooking the psychology and mindset of the adversaries. While understanding the psychology of the victims or the end users, how to successfully social engineer them is very important. But I think to be a really good adversarial uh, professional, or offensive security professional, is to understand the psychology of who we're trying to emulate. Uh, so the threat actor philosophy and psychology should be considered. War teaches us to know our adversaries. Same thing as in martial arts or other combat sports. In sports in general, know your adversary, know your opponent. Even like football teams will review videos of their opponents prior to the game to see how they work. And cybersecurity professionals are fighting cyber wars, so we must know our adversaries in that same way. So, kind of to get into some of the philosophies and stuff, The Conscience of a Hacker, also known as the Hacker Manifesto, is a small essay written January 8th, 1986, by a computer security hacker who went by the handle or pseudonym of The Mentor, his birth name Lloyd Blankenship, who belonged to the second generation of the hacker group Legion of Doom. It was written after the author's arrest and first published in the underground hacker e-zine Frack, and can be found on many websites as well as on t-shirts and films. Considered a cornerstone of the hacker culture, the manifesto acts as a guideline to hackers across the globe, especially those new to the field. It serves as ethical foundation for hacking and asserts that there is a point of hacking that supersedes selfish desires to exploit, harm other people, and that technology should be used to expand our horizons and help keep the world free. So this is a good reference here for like the philosophy of hackers, and this is more in the mindset of professional hackers or ethical hackers, people that are trying to do this for good. You get into some of the cyber criminals and hacktivists, and sometimes they don't always take these things into consideration. Hacktivists sometimes will be not wanting to injure people, but maybe they're uh, you know activists towards you know climate change in the environment, and they'll just want to do things like deface websites or do things to get attention, not harm people. But then again, there's other types of people that use these adversary techniques that don't keep this in mind. So that this can kind of vary from the type of hacker or adversary. And keep in mind, when we're talking about hacker, we're talking about when I'm referring to the skill set, not say because hacker and cyber criminals are not used interchangeably. It's just the tools and techniques that are shared. So the philosophies vary between different types of hackers. For example, some nation states and cyber criminals aren't concerned with the safety and well-being of their targets, which contradict the Hackers Manifesto. In some cases, during nation states during cyber wars, and they're not concerned with the safety of people. Maybe the person doing the action, maybe they are, but the people that they are working for don't consider that. So these philosophies vary. That's why it's really hard to define a philosophy. So if you went to like a criminal philosophy compared to just a hacker philosophy, it's going to be different. But there's going to be some things that are even similar in all types of hackers, all types of people that hack. So learning and practicing TTPs, would also known as the long-term tactics, and procedures, help develop the hacker mindset. So developing the hacker mindset is developed by hands-on practice. So working in labs, working in bug bounties, and doing this thing, hands-on hacking is going to help build that mindset. And it's one of these things, once you've worked as a penetration tester or done some sort of hacking, you kind of learn that you see things. For instance, I was at an airport back during my consulting days waiting for my luggage at the luggage carousel, and I saw a USB stick laying on the ground. And the first thing I come to mind is I'm thinking, what malicious payload is on that USB stick? Because I know as an adversary emulator, a penetration tester, that a lot of times we deliver payloads that way, and so will adversaries, so will the bad guys. So when you see those things, you just kind of learn to you get that hacker mentality. You start to think like a hacker, and you see certain vulnerabilities on a system. You see Apache web server, or you see Tomcat, and sometimes they're vulnerable to payload uploads, unrestricted uploads, or something like default credentials. So sometimes you're able to get a payload to that system and maybe get access. So as you see those things and you develop those hacking skills, learn the different vulnerabilities and exploits, you kind of learn that you put those things together. When you see it, you think, okay, this is what I do next. And that's kind of a description of the hacker mindset. The hacker mindset's universal, whether it's used for good or bad. It's the intent that is different. It's not necessarily so the understanding how to get into things piece kind of is universal. So the different adversary types. So we have hacktivists, state actors, cybercrime groups, insiders, scammers, and script kiddies. So these are just there could be more groups, and this could be broken down further. Your hacktivists are usually just in this because it's for a cause, some ideology. You could be people that are for the environment, and they may go after some companies or energy companies that are polluting the environment. So they're doing it for a good cause. They're trying, it's just taking activism a step further. One of the things we look at in the digital age, protesting certain things were in person. Just some of the old school activist type of opportunities and ways of doing things have transformed along with our digital age in the communications. State actors, this could be any foreign country, nation states, that this could be their cyber warfare team. They're trying to possibly steal intellectual property from other countries. They're trying to disable power grids or something for other countries in different enemy states. And you got cybercrime groups, which this can vary the types. Insiders, of course, a lot of times people overlook, and there's a higher percentage of people that are insiders, and this could be disgruntled employees. And this is not always an actual employee. This could be someone is implanted in the organization. I was speaking with a company last year, and they were kind of sharing some uh, intelligence with us, and they were talking about a company that produced hardware that someone was implanted from another government there to steal intellectual property. And so these insiders can also be disgruntled employees. You hear the stories of past where someone, a programmer for a bank, programmed the application to put like a tenth of a percent into his account from all the accounts in the bank, and after so long they got this money. I've never verified if that's true or not. It could well possibly be. Sometimes those stories come from facts, but I can't validate for sure. But you hear those kind of stories. So you see people that are doing all sorts of things for job security. They want to document things. They don't want people to be able to replace them. So sometimes they do malicious activities. They get, upset with their employer. They do things, steal intellectual property and all sorts of things. So insiders are also a threat. And so the motivation, and so some of these are going to kind of overlap with some of the other slide, but hacktivism, financial, retaliation, cyber terrorism, curiosity, challenge, and thrills. These are some of the motivations. And these last three, the curiosity and challenge, these are the more of the universal traits, motivations, because a lot of people, whether they're, a malicious threat actor or just someone that does bug bounties or someone that is playing around hack the box, the curiosity and the challenge and the thrill is kind of a motivator. And this is really some of the things that motivate like script kiddies. They may find some tool, they're wanting to see if it actually works on a production website, and so they try it on a website. And so, but the curiosity and challenge and thrills what gets people into hacking in general. And so financial, one of the things we're seeing with financial, this could be someone directly breaching a system and getting access to funds or things of value. And then there's also, ransomware has been one of the more popular ways that attackers can monetize their attacks. So using ransomware, files are encrypted and then the victim has to pay to, get the decryption code keys to be able to decrypt their data. So this is one way attackers have found to monetize attacks, and using cryptocurrency, they're able to get the funds without being traced as easily as you would back in the days of someone just doing a wire transfer to a bank or actually sending money physically or whatever. So these are kind of ways that those things have kind of evolved over the years. And so how to start? So getting to know the adversary. So to get to know the adversary, you need to understand their attacks. So one of the ways to start out that is kind of a good shortcut to that, because otherwise you can do a lot of studying, and I advise that too. If you're interested in offensive security, especially more towards the red teaming or adversary emulation, then it's good to study all the different attack techniques and stuff out there. But MITRE has made this more easy for us through the MitrAttack framework, and you can find that at attack.mitre.org. And so they've got like a resource there that you can go through and see these different ATPs and the different TTPs that they're using for their attacks. So this is kind of a way to get to understand. You look at these different APTs and see how they're operating. And so the cool thing about that is, just from the TTP standpoint, this is something that could go across different APTs, but getting to understand different APTs can be important to your organization. So maybe you work for a power company or some other resource like natural resource type company, and you can go out and look and find these different APTs and find out what may be the ones that may be attacking your industry more specifically. So that way you kind of know to understand that adversary more. And then cybersecurity threat intelligence. So cyber threat intelligence is something good to know whenever you're trying to learn what these adversaries are doing. So that is a good area to know, is knowing your adversary from threat intelligence. And so if you're not familiar with MITRE, MitrAttack is at the address mentioned above, attack.mitre.org. MitrAttack is a globally accessible knowledge base of adversary techniques based on real-world observations. The attack knowledge base is used as a foundation for the development of specific threat models and methodologies in the private sector. and government and in cybersecurity product and service community. So this is a good way to, you're working on, they mentioned here, your threat model. So you're working on your threat model. There's specific, when you're building out that threat model, you want to take in consideration the adversaries that you may have trying to attack your environment. So that's one of the good ways to know that. So this kind of gives you the definition from MitrAttack's website. So using so getting more into the cyber threat intelligence, Katie Nichols has some really good stuff out there, and she's a SANS instructor, and she's also, I believe she works for, I think, Canary, possibly. I'm not real sure at that. I was preparing these slides, but at any rate, Katie created this intelligence training with Adam Pennington, so you can access that on a MITRE's website. So they got some videos and stuff to teach you how to learn that threat intelligence. And where I first found out about Katie and the threat intelligence, I follow her on Twitter for years, but where I found out about her threat intelligence involvement was going through looking at some material from SANS, some information on purple teaming and red teaming. And when they cover some of the stuff on threat intelligence, SANS has Katie as an instructor there. So looking at some of the information she had to offer there, some links back to MITRE and also some other resources. So on that resource, there's actually like some videos and stuff too. So that's a good resource. And a cyber threat intelligence self-study plan by Katie Nichols. This is on our Medium page. And to date, I believe there is just the part 1 out there, but this is a really good place to start. This shows you some different ways to do self-study on threat intelligence. A good low cost. I mean, it doesn't cost you anything. It's free resources. So you can go out there and use this to learn about threat intelligence. And also CrowdStrike has some good information out there. And what is cyber threat intelligence by CrowdStrike. So you can find that on their security 101 section on their website. So that's a good resource there that you can use. And so defending against the adversary. So you're learning this knowledge of how threat actors work. So you can use this to defend against threat actors. So, this threat intelligence is good for, red teamers to emulate adversaries, but this is also good and very important to the defenders to know what to defend against. You can go out and look at MITRE. You look at the different type of APTs, what TTPs that they're using, and you can go in and make sure you're protecting against those, to watch for those, try to detect and prevent against those type of TTPs. And so for the offensive side, this is kind of the area that I'm more passionate about, but I wanted to include some of the defense stuff in there too, because in my Pen Tester Blueprint talks in my book, I share with how offensive cybersecurity knowledge is good for defenders. It's good for SOC analysts. It's good for network security, operations security, different defenders, not necessarily just the offensive team, but it's good for the defenders to be able to defend against the bad guys. So for offensive security, using the knowledge to emulate threat actors. So you got red teaming. This is true adversary emulation. And I want to make sure to, clarify there is a difference. Red teaming and blue teaming are used to generically identify offense and defense, but true red teaming is adversary emulation. Pen testing is using the adversary TTPs during security assessment. So you're performing a security vulnerability assessment. You're using these different TTPs during that test. A pen tester is trying to find every vulnerability that can be exploited and exploiting those. As a red teamer, during a red team operation, you're trying to find high impact vulnerabilities that can be exploited, something that would emulate a breach. So you're finding 1 or 2 ways in, having a secondary way in case you get that first option is blocked or something happens, the system gets rebooted, you can't get back on, having a backup plan, another way to get in. So you're doing things that lead to a breach is more emulating what a threat actor would do, like a nation state or those type of actors. So you're, like I said, you're looking for the things that can be breached. You're going through and trying to, get access, trying to exfil data, see if that's a possibility, see what you could get to. You're trying to go undetected. Penetration tests, you've got limited time, so you're really not trying to go undetected. You're using vulnerability scanners, whereas in red teaming, you're not using the vulnerability scanners. You don't want to be caught. You're doing techniques that are to go undetected. So you keep this in mind. Pen testing, less time. You're trying to find every vulnerability and try to exploit everything that's vulnerable. And purple team is collaborating with the blue team. So red team and blue team working together to try to prevent these type of attacks. And so when it comes to red team operations, plan to execute your operation. So you leverage MITRE to emulate adversaries. So we got a little screenshot here of what the attack matrix looks like. So you can see there's a reconnaissance, resource development, initial access, execution, persistence, privilege escalation, defense evasion, credential access, discovery, and lateral movement. And so, also maintaining persistence is one of the things that goes on during this time. So you can go through here and pick the APT that you want to use, choose the APT for your engagement, then execute the operation, and then write your report. But also one of the things you can do is you can be more creative. Well, as far as choosing APT, first choice, you might find APTs that are common to your industry and work on those first. Then later on, you can get more creative and just kind of do your own, come up with your own TTPs and own attack methods, because, these things, before the community knows about it, before MITRE has it in their database, go unknown. So being creative and building your own TTPs is a good practice as well. And so pen testing. So you leverage the TTPs during the security assessment. So in this case, you're using whatever, like Eternal Blue, when it was, you're still seeing that environment, but that's one of the ones that you could try to leverage, see if these vulnerabilities are vulnerable to something like that. So you try to see if you can, you look for your vulnerabilities and see if they can be exploited, and then you see how far you can go. So you're still leveraging some of the same techniques as an adversary using these TTPs, but you're doing this in a way where you're not worried about going undetected. And to also kind of share, it's good to do pen test and red team engagements both, because the red team the pen tests are going to get your security defenses up a little bit quicker. You're doing your regularly reoccurring vulnerability scans, you're doing your pen tests. So red team engagements are more for more mature organizations. So once your organization gets a little more mature, then you don't have to, then you can kind of move on to the adversary emulations of a red team engagement. So purple team, as we kind of mentioned a while ago, you're working with the red team and blue team are working together to make sure that things are being detected. So going back to MITRE, selecting the different APT groups, select specific APTs, seeing if you can run Mimikatz in your environment, or if PowerShell is enabled by default. Just going through and working on those, executing Mimikatz. If that executes successfully, then you need to make sure your endpoint protection is detecting and blocking those. And so this is really good to do after a red team engagement or a penetration test, because by going in and shutting down certain tools, then you make it more difficult for attackers to get their attacks through. So this is a great resource, and really one of those things when you're starting your pen tests and your vulnerability assessments are running, purple teaming is something to put in there, because that helps bring up the maturity of your security environment. And so thanks for attending my talk. Before I became an instructor, I was also sharing information with people that wanted to become OSCP certified, wanting to become pen testers. So I've done a lot of mentoring before I started teaching, and I do a lot more now, mentoring and teaching. So feel free to reach out to me. I'm happy to answer your